It's my pleasure to introduce Xu Weigo. I hope I don't killing your last name. Who is visiting us and teaching in SCI-Arc this semester. It's an interesting thing what's going on in China. It's not a surprise to say. It has become one of the places where architecture is in kind of an explosion of everything that is right and everything that is wrong about architecture seems to be happening all at once in China right now. And more often than not, we get to see what American architects, European architects get to do there and how they try to navigate that context and the particular forces at being. I think it's going to be an interesting change of pace to see somebody who's coming from that culture and that context and that situation to show how he's trying to navigate that situation and how he's trying to interact with the other forces that being in places like SCI and in connection with the rest of the world. So just to give you some short facts about Xu, he's a professor and head of architectural department in the School of Architecture in Tsinghua University in China. He was awarded his doctorate from Kyoto University in Japan and was a visiting scholar at MIT. He has published 10 books on design methodology and new digital technologies for architecture, and his paper has been published in many journals. He was one of the curators of the Architecture Biennale in Beijing in the year 2004, 2006, 2008, and 2010. He has lectured in many countries among USA, Japan, France, Europe, etc. His practice is called XWG, and it's an archi studio. So it's an archi studio that operates in teaching and design and professional work, and he has been the winner of many competitions. He will talk about the concept of XWG as an office and how that interacts with his work as a teacher and as a figure in the architecture culture. Xu, please welcome.
Thank you, Hernan. Good evening, and thanks for coming. I'm very grateful for inviting me to have a lecture here, and at the same time, I have, in fact, have a design studio here. Professor Eric Owen Moss last year met a guy in Shanghai, in China, who is the head of a modern design group, which is biggest design institute in China. And this guy said, we got a lot of chance to listen to the voice from America. But in fact, there is no chance for Chinese people to speak something to America. From the cultural exchange, there should be communication from both sides. Maybe Eric accept his suggestion and invite me to be here. Maybe I'm one of the first representative to speak something here in America. And today I would like only talk something happened in Beijing, in China. Of course, take my office design project as examples. The topic of my speech is dynamic response. In fact, the design in our office starts from very simple and very common concept. And we think the definition of architecture is 3 elements. And one is people, and one is nature, another one is building. So in fact, it is a place. But we think the people is moving, and the nature is changing. So the question is that how should we get get a form for building, which comes from moving people and change nature. That's to say, the building should meet the dynamic requirements from people and the nature. Most of architects also try to solve these problems before, but only use their own mind, use their brain and hands only. But the nature, the moving people is too complicated to handle by only human beings' brain and hands. But right now, we think we got new tools could solve this problem efficiently. That's the new digital technology. And we try to use these new tools to fund the building form for the design, which could meet dynamic requirements from people's requirements of use. And here are some examples in our design studio, and try to explore this way to meet the dynamic requirements of the people. And this is an annex to a station house. At the design beginning, we had an investigation to the site, and this is the existing station house. And in the investigation, we found the people, when the people exit the station, they generally have a certain destination to go. And this direction is to the science park, in which there are many office buildings. And another destination is this area, which is a residential area. And also people come crossing straight to this point, and there is a commercial street along this street. And also some people cross the road to the complex building here. Some of the people come to north residential area. So this kind of people's movement, in fact, to be a very clearly the function need, I think, yeah. And we use the algorithm to generating this body form for the architecture. Totally, it is correspondent to the people's flowing in the site. And this is one example. And the second example is also a research project. And here we use the Lorentz curve to shape the main visiting route of the building. This is also a gallery design. This is a gallery design. We use the Lorentz curve to shape the main visiting route for the design. And then also consider the use inside and the conditions surrounding conditions, and combine all these requirements together and generating this form. And this is a third example. This is a showroom in the corner of two streets. And in this design, we use the electric field line to generating the form. In fact, we set two systems. One of the system is the entrance and exit system. We fix the point of the exit and entrance. And then we set another system of the points, which is the exhibits in this showroom. And they use the electric field line to take the exit and entrance as the positive poles, and take the points of exhibits as the negative poles. And they use the electric field line to generating the form. So that's the result of the the design by the electric field, and including the building and also the landscape, all come from the electric field lines. And this is fourth example. And here in this case, this is a complex design. And we use multi-agent system to simulate the different parts of function use, the function. And then we could get a relationship between different components of a function. And besides, we also use the Fluent kind of software to simulate the people, how the people go through the inner space to reach their destination. And we combine these two results and get this body form for the architecture. So the shape, the form also comes from the people's moving, people's use. And this is another example. Here it is a showroom in 798 Art District in Beijing. And in this site, in south direction, in the south part of the site, this is a plaza. And north part is also a plaza. And in the site, the people generally go from this plaza to another plaza, go through this site for this building. So we use the software is Fluent to simulate the people's flowing. And then take the result as the base and then generating this form in Maya with subdivision. Now here, this bubbles, in fact, is the place where people do not go into. And we take those places for courtyard or for the void. So above examples, I would like to explain how we get a form for the building, which could meet the people's dynamic and nature's changing requirements to the design. And the following are some projects from my office. I also would like to introduce some projects to verify our very simple concept of design. First project is an office building in Qinzhou City, which is in south part of China, near Vietnam. And we call this project by climate buffer layer. And because in this area, the temperature is very high, very hot area. And we want to learn something from the biology. Generally, the life organism have a special skin configuration in order to adapt to complicated variable nature. And here, we also want to create a layer, a buffer layer, to prevent the building to be attacked by a high temperature. And this is a detail of the skin. And in the position of structure flow, and we keep the surface solid. And when the inside space need more natural light, we design a big hole here. And some other place could be a small holes there. And this is a space between skin and the main structure. We could have some greeneries in the space. And this is the inside. When people see through the window, could see the hole and the nature. Also could see the greenery in the between space. This is a perspective outside. In fact, in this area, the local vernacular house, all of them are surrounded by a greenery, and also in their surface covered with trees, greeneries. And the site itself originally covered with the plants and the river. So we try to keep this ecology environment for the building. And also we make research on the prevailing winds in this area. This diagram shows the main wind direction is southwest, and the strongest wind comes from east direction. And from the ecotech checking, we found this area, east and west side with long shadows. So when we decide the body form, we first make research, a serious research of the form. And finally, we take this as the final form. And this line is exactly the southwest direction. And this gap could for the main wind comes into the building. And this gap is is open to the east and could let the strongest wind come into this building, but not directly, but by a pipe and to the courtyard. So the building, inside the space, the people in the inside space could get more wind. If there is wind, there will be cold. They have a comfortable environment in the building. Also, the shader could cover more area of the building. This is outside perspective. The question is how to build the buffer layer. At the beginning, we tried to use the net structure and the brick to build the buffer layer. We compared different form of the brick. And finally, we decided a very economic, very cheap ways to construct the buffer layer. And this is the main structure. And there is three elements where consists of the buffer layer, the outside skin. One is the cross beams, and second is the green color components, which is filling parts, filling into the cross beam. And the third part is the connection part. This part is a balcony and terrace and so on, could connect this main structure and the buffer layer. And this is an image, it's a perspective of cross beams in the surface. And this is the elevation, this is a cross beam, and this is filling parts. These are on the side when the cross beam are constructed. And from the inside, you can see the cross beam, how the cross beam covered the surface. And this is the construction details. And these are filling components, reinforced bar. This is when put the filling part into the cross beam. This is detail. And this project is under construction. And this is some details of building. hopefully, the end of this year will be completed. So this is one project in our office. And second, I will talk about a dining room. In fact, it's a restaurant. We call it Vector Wall. We did this science park master plan and the single building design. Already finished the construction drawings, which is situated in Wuhan, in central part of China. And this is an existing building extension. And these all are new buildings, all are office building. And this is the restaurant building. This is another perspective of this science park. And this is the restaurant. And this restaurant is located exactly just between side from lake to the land. This is a Google map, and this is existing building. There is a part of extension here, and these are some small buildings existing. And this is the site for the restaurant. In the beginning of the design research, we think the building should have some character which is similar to biologic organism, or something come from lake. And this building should be the connection borders between the land and the lake. So this building should face the lake and also connect the land. Or this building should come from the land and it goes to the lake. This is some research performed in the design process. But it doesn't make sense because there is no relationship between the building with the surrounding condition. Although this body is connected, these two parts together, but the facade, the detailed designs without any relation with the surrounding. So again, we make research on the site. We found this is very beautiful lake scenery, and also very beautiful greenery in the land. And also, it changed from morning to the night, and from lake scenery to the land scenery. Everything, in fact, is changed. So how to express this kind of change? And also, we think the change is with intensity. Here, we mainly consider two elements for the building facade design. One is the lake view, and another is the sunlight. And in different places, in different points of the site, and in different places of the building facade, in fact, there is different intensity of these two elements. So we give value to each different points of the facade. And also we had scripting to describe this different amount of value, and then generating this pattern and for the facade. And then put this pattern onto the wall. And we got this, we call it vector elevation. In the lake side, there is a big glass window. And in the lens side, there is a smaller glass window. It's a detail of the windows. It's a model. It's a perspective from lake. And we tried to make the facade building looks like something gradually change. And in one side, the elevation is the reflection of the lake. And another side, the facade detail is the reflection of the land. And finally, we had this working drawings. This is elevation. And totally, there are 16 windows in the facade, in the building. This is the first floor, and this is second floor. And also, we use this pattern of elevation to design fashion. This is the model shown in a fashion in a ceremony of the exhibition. And this we learned from the Elena Mafadina. And 2006, Elena had an exhibition and a fashion show in China, in Architecture Biennale in Beijing. After that, we also used this method to cut the fashion with paper, with the CNC milling machine to cut the paper to make the fashion. This fashion, in fact, is made from paper. This is another photos of the model wearing the paper fashion. Okay, this is two projects. And third project I would introduce is a urban planning exhibition center, which is in Handan City in Hebei province. And in this design, we try to use FRP as the material to build the building. And this year in China, lots of urban exhibition centers and exhibition halls have been built. Generally, there is a pattern for the urban halls. In the center, they have a big model, and the people to visit the model, around the model and to visit it. And then there is some small rooms around this big model. So this is a typical diagram of the urban planning center. In fact, this is very like the donut. It's a bright circle. So our design starts from this abstract diagram. And first, we built a parametric model in Maya. And we used the subdivision to build this model. And then the central part could be for the big model of master plan of this city. And the people could around this central area to visit the model. Also, some space around this big space are showrooms. And according to different requirements, we shape different height, different space for the different use in the building. Anyway, we could do anything in parametric model in the software. And this is the final form for the building. And also, we use the inner logic of the form. In fact, when the computer generating this form, it has inner logic, and we found this logic as a structural system, and also the detail the facade design is followed this logic. This is a second concept design in the same project. And here, finally, we use this design as the final building. This form has come from minimal surface. And this is some examples of minimal surface with minimal surface generating this kind of form. And this is typical standard forms from standard physical formula and generating the form in mathematical software platform. This is also a very standard form from the minimal surface. And we cut one of this body, we cut one piece of the whole body as the building, and then gradually to optimize to this form and got this shape for the building. And the question is how to build it. And here we try to use a kind of FRP material to build it. And this is the rooftop view. This is the first floor, second floor. And the FRP, in fact, it's a fiber reinforced polystyrene. This is the detailed section of the FRP. And inside the body is the firm fire resistant. And on the top of the surface with the fiber reinforced plastic layer. And in the bottom layer is the fiber, also the same material with the top. And this upper layer bear pressure load. And the foam bear cut force. And the bottom layer bear pull force. And because the size of the component and also the size of the machine, bed size of the machine is limited to a certain size. So the components only a very small size must be a limited size for the components. So to a whole building, a whole body of building, we should divide the big body into small pieces, and then fabricate each of the pieces and assemble them together. So the question is how to divide this big body into small pieces. And we make research on the distribution of the stress under gravity, and also the displacement of the building under earthquake, and the distribution of the displacement under earthquake, and the distribution of the stress under the earthquake, and so on. And after analysis, and we found reasonable lines and to cut this whole body into those small pieces. And then we could, piece by piece, to fabricate this all piece and then assemble them together. And here we found another examples in Europe. They use the same way to build a big roof.
By robot, centimeter by centimeter, into the right form. 460 elements of different size and density are prepared in this way. The unique asymmetrical winged roof will be assembled from these components later. First, the side elements are reinforced with polyester resin and glass fiber mats. According to load requirements for the component, up to 12 layers are applied.
übereinander aufgetragen.
There's 12 layers.
In einem nächsten Schritt
In
laminieren.
a next step, several components are laminated together to one single construction element. There are, as yet, no empirical values to support developers in their calculations regarding load capacity of synthetic material parts. Therefore, in the laboratory of the EPFL Lausanne, tests are conducted first. Sensors measure every deformation of the girder as loads slowly increase to well beyond nominal value and the component breaks.
Das Dach nimmt Lauf.
The roof slowly takes shape. After the first quarter has been glued together from 115 individual elements, the entire surface is now laminated together to form a load-carrying construction element using several layers of polyester resin and fiberglass tissue.
So finally, this big roof was built. The test verify this FRP with enough ability to bear load. So we try to build this building in this way. But in the big building case, this is much complicated, and there are many issues must be solved. In fact, this is under research. It is a research project. In fact, finally, we didn't get the real project, but we still in the process of research in university, try to build smaller buildings in the campus. And then the next project is interior design. This interior is in a Linglong Tower in Olympic Game Village in Beijing. We call this project exposure, reflection, and transmission. And here in this project, we use mainly 3 different materials to try to reflect the surrounding character. And one of the materials is acrylic lines. And the second material is stainless steel mirror. It could reflect the environment elements. And third material is semi-transparent acrylic. Could let the outside light and outside color, different color of lines come into the space. And because this tower, each of the unit, this is the tower, and this is the unit we had the interior project in. And all this surface is the glass. So in order to prevent the sunshine too strong into the space, the client tried to have a ceiling which could prevent the sunshine to come very strongly come in the interior space. But our concept is that we should keep those environment character, to say, should have some environment character still kept in the new interior space after the rebuild interior design. And in this space, you can see the bird nest outside. Yeah. And this is the very beginning design intention. And we try to keep the glass, the curtain of the glass curtain still in its original state, and people could see through the window and to see the outside scenery, Olympic Game scenery, Game Village scenery. And only we tried to do a roof, the ceiling. And this ceiling also could reflect the environment element, and also could let the outside lines come in. And this is the roof. At the beginning, we think we should have this kind of ceiling. This is some some designs, concept designs for the ceiling. And this triangle form is come from the main structure. We still keep the triangle form for the ceiling. But we don't want to 2D, it's too flat. We try to make a 3D components of triangle components. And it started from the fractal in the nature, fractal form in the nature. And we use the grasshopper to control these three different materials, the percentage of these three materials. This button could control one of them, one of these three material. And this button could control another of these three materials. And the rest is the third material. And then we could open each material separately to export those material parts and to have a rendering even. Also, we could have another button to control the triangle components. Could have different height of the components. And this is a result of the different material, different percentage of the material. And this is under construction. I could see acrylic lines. And this is the stainless steel mirror. Could reflect different colors that come from surrounding. At different time, different condition outside, the ceiling could reflect different phenomena at the time. This is a photo of completion. After completed, you also could see the bird nest and outside scenery in the Olympic Village. The last project, I would introduce a concept design only. It is also art center in 798 in Beijing. This form generated by DLA algorithm. This is the final perspective of art center in 798. And this is the site plan. In fact, in this site, around this site, there are many industrial heritage, which is very beautiful, and right now some of it still in use. And first, I would like to have a brief introduction to DLA. DLA is a diffusion limited aggregation, and we use this algorithm, but rewrite it into a 3D array. And first, we put the way to use this algorithm to generating form is like that. We first to establish an enclosed space, and then put some static particles into a closed 3D space, and then put in some new particles which could move randomly. And if new particles hit the space wall, they will disappear. And if they come into the territory of one of the static particles, they will stop and connect this static particle together. This phenomenon could be called aggregation. So when we put new dynamic particles into the space continually, the same aggregation will happen until an ideal aggregation result appears. The result of this aggregation will be a fractal structure. And in this design process, we take stationary particles as the exhibits and the moving particles as visitors. And the final fractal structure represents the visiting route. So that's the way we use this algorithm to generate in the architecture form. First, we make research on the site and to have some control lines. In fact, this is the good view lines to surrounding industrial heritage. And then establish a box for the space. And first, we put 3 static particles into the space, and then continues to put a series moving particle into the space. And when the moving particle come into the territory of those 3 stationary particles, they will have the connection. And when this particle connection to the static particles, they become stationary particle. And so finally, we could get a series fractal structure. And then we compare them and choose one of the fractal structure as the base to use it as the building form. And this is one of the fractal structure we choose. And then we use another technology named Metable, and to make the space, make the structure, make it has a structurability, and to this step. And then gradually we added the floor and covered the surface and the surface detail and so on. Also consider the visiting route inside the building. And finally get the design result. And this is the interior perspective. And this is the final design. Okay, that's what I want to talk. So thank you very much.